Destroying a nation's wealth accumulated over 30 years, how long do you think it will take? In 1997 in Asia, the answer is just a few months. Not a single warship was in action. Nor did they launch a single missile. Only the numbers that flicker on the screen, Thailand's decades. On top of the fire spread across Asia. Countless ordinary people. I thought so, yesterday. 1 foot in a developed country, ready to follow the Western big brother and enjoy all the luxuries result. Woke up this morning, the money in his hand is worthless. Even the most proud multinational giant of the country, all cut into pieces sold to Wall Street at rock. Bottom prices this sounds like. Isn't this even more absurd than a sci-fi disaster movie? But that was back in the day. The real catastrophe happening around us to destroy a country. Actually, there is no need for surgery or firearms. Just put him on the pedestal first, then kick it down again. Hello everyone, I am Peach. Welcome back to the series on the rise and fall of hegemony in the previous episode. We discussed the US left the Soviet Union down with the arms race. The right hand delivered a precise blow to the overtake attempt of the 25-year-old guy. Japan is truly a land of endless beauty. But then again, the group of financial tycoons in suits on Wall Street, their appetite is never satisfied. When they emerged from the ruins of Japan's economic bubble, burst after withdrawing a massive amount of hot money, then they turned their attention to. I was completely immersed in it at the time. Southeast Asia in the dream of economic soaring. Today's 5th episode, let's take a deep dive into the Asian financial crisis. The water behind how deep is it? How Wall Street uses financial weapons and so called international aid to devour and tear apart the nations of Asia. Of course, history is a mirror. Everyone looks different in the photos. Just relax and listen. Don't be too serious. Rewind to the early 1990s, Southeast Asia at that time, especially in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The 4 Asian tigers, celebrated by Western media, it is truly a place of endless beauty. The origin of all this actually, it started in 1985. The famous Plaza Accord began to be calculated. Japan was forced to sign the agreement under pressure from the United States. The Japanese yen was forced to appreciate substantially, causing manufacturing costs in Japan to skyrocket. Thus, massive industrial capital and speculative financial hot money start moving in a frenzy towards Southeast Asia. Looking for cheaper labor and higher investment returns by 1990 Japanese stock market and real estate bubble completely burst. There are no more opportunities to make money in the country. No more places to go hungry. Hot money, it was all poured into Southeast Asia in one go. The money is pouring into Southeast Asia in a torrential flow. Help them build factories and buildings. The streets of Bangkok at that time everywhere you look. There are new skyscrapers and upscale shopping malls. The stock market keeps climbing every day. You can make a profit even if you buy with your eyes closed. The Thais really thought so at that time. 1 foot already stepping into the door of developed countries, but this kind of prosperity, it is actually a fragile false prosperity. It is like taking out a loan from someone else at high interest rates. Wearing gold and silver on the surface, he seems to be a wealthy man. In fact, even the underwear is mortgaged to the bank. Across Southeast Asian countries still basking in the euphoria of the economic miracle, the crisis has quietly crept up. Up to this point, Western media and scholars of that time, I really like the wind direction. They will tell everyone, oh, Southeast Asia will end up in such a terrible situation later on. This was all due to the mainland's currency unification in 1994. A big devaluation of the RMB, we've completely secured all the OEM orders from Southeast Asia. Damn, this big pot has to be thrown at the Chinese mainland. That would really be too far-fetched. What is the actual situation? Actually, before the official merger in 1994, the mainland has long been using the 8.7 market exchange rate, settled that adjustment to put it bluntly. It is just that the actual figures have been consolidated on paper. Like that those Asian guys really took their lives. What exactly is it? Let's start with Thailand. What about Thailand at that time? Just playing the theories of financial liberalization from Wall Street. It became an unquestionable imperial decree. Why are they so obedient? Thailand had a grand ambition at that time. Thailand has experienced a decade of rapid economic growth. This ingrained pattern of success has made everyone complacent. They are no longer satisfied. Just a labor-intensive contract manufacturing base, they aim to challenge the dominance of Singapore and Hong Kong. Make Bangkok the financial center of Asia for the dream of becoming a financial powerhouse. The Thai government also in 1993. They established an organization called the Bangkok International Financial Facilities. The policy abbreviated as BIPFAT. Name sounds so sophisticated, doesn't it? In essence, it is aimed at domestic companies. A premium VIP fast track service for foreign exchange, Borrowing has been launched at that time. The loan interest rate in Thailand was as high as over 10%. But through this channel, access to the international market to borrow US dollars, the interest rate is only around 5%. There is a full half bank spread in between. Thailand's businesses and citizens are going wild. I'll do whatever it takes to borrow it. What everyone is thinking about since the government helped us borrow cheap US dollars and promised the exchange rate would never change. Isn't this a free opportunity to get rich? Moreover, the Thai baht exchange rate has remained stable at approximately 25 to 1 for an extended period. This creates exchange rate risk for all parties involved. The illusion of non-existence, believing that as long as it is pegged to the US dollar, the Thai baht is equivalent to the US dollar. As a result, countless people rushed to participate in dollar-denominated loans. They immediately shifted their investments into real estate and the stock market. But here lies the most lethal detail. All of this money is short-term debt. What does that mean? Most of these loans require repayment every 3 to 6 months. This is a classic example of short-term debt with long-term investment. In hand holding onto a short-term IOU that could be reclaimed by Wall Street at any moment underfoot, but it takes at least 3 to 5 years. Reinforced concrete that simply can't be sold. The whole of Thailand was in a frenzy over this. Hardly has created an asset bubble of colossal proportions. Everyone is betting. The creditors of the debt will keep lending them money. The bubble of speculation will never burst. But they forgot date on the IOU. It is like a guillotine hanging over their necks. By the end of 1996, short-term foreign debt owed by Thailand, it has skyrocketed to $79 billion. But guess what? In the safe of the Bank of Thailand, what is the remaining foreign exchange reserve? Be fully prepared to only $38.7 billion. The proportion of short-term foreign debt to foreign exchange reserves, it directly breaks through the 120% mark. What does this mean? This means that even if the Thai government sells all its assets, take out all the US dollars from the national treasury, and can't pay off the debt that is about to expire, what is even worse is Thailand. I made a fatal mistake in finance at that time. They kept their eyes on the US dollar basket of currencies. The US dollar accounts for 80 to 90% of the total fixed exchange rate. Meanwhile, it keeps its doors wide open to foreign investment. Not even a revolving door is installed. You know? There is a classic and cruel iron law in finance called impossible triangle, in plain English, a country. If you want to achieve a fixed exchange rate at the same time free flow of capital, 3 things you can control yourself, interest rates, and so on. It is like expecting your partner to be both handsome and wealthy. They also need to be available 24/7, on call at all times. This isn't about dating. This is an illusion against human nature in reality. You can only choose 2 options at most. But Thailand at that time, I was completely mesmerized by the miracle of those 10 years. I always feel that my destiny is extraordinary. To defy this ironclad rule, just think about how you've been slashing costs. Free flow of foreign capital, he once again pledged that the exchange rate would never drop. This isn't even business. This is like revealing all your cards. Just lay it out in front of those gambling gods. On Wall Street, up to this point, we have to turn back. Look at the United States in this drama. What exactly was the role? Many people assume the US is merely passing through for the spectacle. But in fact, every rule of this century hunt, they were probably all tailored to his benefit. Tosi's a sovereign state. What is the most elegant script? The essence lies in long-term academic indoctrination and public opinion. Hype, the goal is to help you let go of your guard. They cheerfully dismantle their own financial defenses. Here is a classic example. In 1993, the World Bank has released a major report. The title is The East Asian Miracle. This report, they've practically elevated Thailand and its neighboring countries to the status of royalty. Speaking of their economic growth, it is a miracle in human history. But this praise is not free. The report was casually loaded with personal agendas. Let everyone know that, as long as the financial market remains fully open, abandon the old exchange rate controls, they could become as wealthy as those in Europe and America. However, when Western mainstream institutions, the collective gives them a high opinion when they were being hailed as the world's model students, don't ever think they're here for charity. Why is that? View the timeline in a longer time frame. During the late 1980s to early 1990s, the United States sought to suppress Japan. It is actually tacit approval, even deliberately keep the US dollar in a relatively weak state. This is equivalent to issuing an extremely enticing fake check to Southeast Asia. Think about it. Given the currencies of Southeast Asian countries, all of them are tightly bound to the US dollar, weak dollar naturally. Southeast Asian assets are considered cheap, attractive, right? So big, large sums of US dollars are as readily available as tap water. It was fully introduced into countries like Thailand and Malaysia. But by 1994, the wind direction has completely changed. The Fed will give the order. A frenzied cycle of interest rate hikes has begun. 7 consecutive interest rate hikes. within a year raising the interest rate directly from 3 to 6% by 1995. The strong dollar is officially back, a strong dollar from the US government in the interest of the United States. It has directly accelerated the global dollar's return flow. It is like this. At the edge of the newly irrigated farmland in Southeast Asia, the big brother who had been generously supplying water suddenly shut off the faucet. And then they flipped it over and inserted another one. The most powerful supersized pump, the water machine, and even more amazing things are yet to come. The big brother not only runs the water pump himself, drain the funds, it also unleashed the most ferocious predators. This refers to the Wall Street quantitative strategies led by George Soros. Subfund, please. When we piece together all these clues, we'll discover this is a perfect harvesting chain. Thailand initially fell prey to the brainwashing tactics of Western institutions. Abandoning financial regulation, keep the door open. Then they created another VIP channel. Across the entire nation, a pile of short-term foreign debts that can't be repaid. And then, in this nationwide frenzy of the dream of getting rich, all this money was poured into real estate and the stock market. Blow up a huge asset bubble. Last, they still naively cling to a fixed exchange rate. By this point, all the vulnerabilities of Thailand have been exposed. The hidden nature of the chain explosions has already been confirmed. Next comes the hunting moment. What is the specific procedure? In simple terms, these financial titans first flocked to Thai banks. A massive amount of Thai baht was borrowed with an extremely low margin after. Getting the Thai baht, they immediately went on a frenzied sell-off in the market. Convert all to US dollars at this time, common investor in the market, when compared to the hot money that was originally invested there. Why are there so many Thai baht suddenly appearing in the market? Selling things at a low price is not right. Is there something serious going on? As this panic spreads, everyone is selling the Thai baht together, and the Bank of Thailand, to maintain that rigid fixed exchange rate, they had to grit their teeth and pull out dollars from their own treasury. Go buy back the Thai baht from the market. But the Thai central bank's limited foreign exchange reserves, who can compete with this group holding hundreds of billions of dollars. Wall Street players who can leverage their power to amplify their gains, infinitely even worse sorrows. They're not just making moves in the currency market, you know. As they were selling off, the Thai baht has been quietly operating in Thailand's stock and futures markets for some time, set up a tight network of surveillance, full short. In other words, the baht is falling, so they're making money. They make money even when the stock market is down. This is referred to as stereotactic strangulation. Alongside mainstream Western financial media stir up trouble there every day, publishing various reports predicting a downturn in Thailand's economy, the entire financial market of Thailand, the panic. Induced bank runs instantly plunged the system into a vicious cycle of self-reinforcing chaos. Finally, we made it to the 2nd of July 1997. The US dollar reserves of the Bank of Thailand have been completely drained. They really have all their cards up their sleeves. Run out of ammunition and food supplies, the government reluctantly announced the abandonment of the fixed exchange rate, let the baht go with the flow. As soon as the news came out, the Thai baht plummeted like a kite with its string snapped. The stock price plummeted nearly 20% right after opening. In just a few short months, it was even cut in half. The exchange rate plummeted to 56 to 1. What is this concept? It means that the wealth that the Thai people have worked hard to accumulate all their lives, as long as it is denominated in Thai baht, 20% evaporated overnight. Less than half a year, it has been cut in half. Even worse is companies that have borrowed foreign debt in US dollars. The loan originally required repayment of just 1 million Thai baht. Due to the collapse of the exchange rate, instant debt doubling, it has become over 2 million. No matter how hard you try, it is impossible to fill this astronomical debt black hole. So the streets of Bangkok, those skyscrapers that once symbolized prosperity and ambition, it all turned into a sinking, unfinished building overnight. This isn't even a financial crisis. This is nothing but a smokeless legal robbery. Thailand has collapsed. This epidemic of panic is like a wildfire. It quickly spread to the neighboring house. Peso of the Philippines, Rupiah of Indonesia, Malaysian ringgit. They were relentlessly targeted by international speculative capital one after another. The Prime Minister of Malaysia at that time, I was so angry that I started yelling at the international conference, calling Wall Street folks, bandits robbed them of all their decades of economic achievements. But curses aside, in the brutal financial hunting ground, tears and anger are the most useless things. The collapse of the Thai baht just knocked over the first domino. The fire then spread rapidly northward. It was directed at what was then the hottest trend, the leader of the Asian Four Tigers. Do you know about Korea? Just 1 year before the crisis hit, in 1996, South Korea has just made a high-profile entry into the OECD. That is what they call a rich club. South Korea at that time created the miracle of the Han River become the 11th largest economy in the world. I even thought so. It has already secured its position as a developed country. But who could have imagined just stepped into the gates of a wealthy family still raising their glasses in celebration? The Koreans, it actually happened in just a few short months. They were drained of their last bit of foreign currency. Everyone, listen, how scary is this number? By November 1997, the real foreign exchange reserve available to the Bank of Korea, only less than $6 billion remained. But the short-term foreign debt, they must repay within the next year up to more than $60 billion. This is no longer a liquidity crisis. This represents the wealth of this country. The coin now has less than 1/10 of its original value. The whole of Korea has reached a substantive stage, sexual breach on the cliff's edge of total bankruptcy of national credit. Just as these countries are falling one after another, get ready for the worst. The IMF, which appears to be providing relief by carrying medical kits finally. It made its dazzling debut. When South Korea had to humbly seek help from the IMF did agree to lend money, but they imposed an extremely harsh penalty. It could even be described as humiliating terms of assistance. IMF demands South Korea to implement ultra-high interest rates. Come on, tighten the economy. This directly leads to countless small and medium-sized enterprises in South Korea go bankrupt because they can't borrow money. Countless families displaced. What is even more interesting is the IMF also imposes mandatory requirements. South Korea must fully open its financial market, allowing foreign capital to invest in Korea's key enterprise. Rise's 100% acquisition, that is, during this period. Core assets like Samsung and Daewoo are key to South Korea's economic strength, as well as the control rights of major banks sold to Western capital at rock-bottom prices. This is not about putting out a fire. This is clearly a case of taking advantage of the situation. Only then did everyone suddenly realize the IMF, who came with a medical kit to save lives, the biggest financier and mastermind behind it all. It was actually that group on Wall Street, the most cheerful big spender. The humiliation of national bankruptcy. The South Korean government is at a loss. Yet the common people at the bottom refuse to accept defeat so easily. Korean people launch a campaign to donate money, the wedding ring from home. The baby's first month gold jewelry. All donations will be used to repay the country's debts. At that time, a full 3.5 million South Koreans were queuing up. A total of 227 tons of gold were donated. This scene was shown on television. Doesn't this look absolutely heart-pounding and soul-stirring? Reality is often more magical than television dramas. The collective myth of saving the country in the end, it all turned into a script for the chaebol Korean conglomerates to divide the spoils. According to the investigation by South Korean prosecutors, these chaebol Korean conglomerates are surviving on state bailouts while reaping benefits. The other side, yet in the air-conditioned room, they meticulously calculated how to reap the nation's benefits. The scene of the darkest humor appeared. They established a tax-free green channel for government disposal of donated sperm on the surface. They pretended to export gold to save the country. They secretly engaged in circular imports to falsify their performance records. Even taken advantage of tax refund policies, joined hands. A staggering tax evasion case involving over 2 trillion won has been uncovered. This is the most ironic part. The common people are selling their pots and pans in the cold wind. The idea is to save the country. The top tycoons are in the secret room, treating the National Salvation Dividend as human blood steamed buns, crazy cashing out at that moment. The most sincere feelings of the people for their country and family. It ended up being seen as by these so-called harvesters best arbitrage tools, as the entire Asian continent plunged into a spiral of death. Countries are trying to protect their exports. They have no choice but to let their own currency plummet in value. When they were fighting each other, Beijing has made a decision. The decision that shocked the whole world: the RMB will never depreciate. At that time, many Western economists believed this is absolutely unreasonable. After all, the currencies of Southeast Asian countries have all plunged by 30 to 40%. The goods are extremely cheap. If the RMB doesn't depreciate accordingly, exporting enterprises in mainland China will face a significant price disadvantage, loss of export orders. Domestic employment is under pressure. These are the obvious costs, but the reality at that time was if the RMB also plunges, so the whole of Asia will be trapped in a never-ending cycle of competitive devaluation. They're stabbing each other in the back. The ultimate outcome is a synchronized collapse of the entire Asian economy. From an objective standpoint, this decision, it has indeed been severed. The chain reaction of Asian currency depreciation, it is crucial to boost the entire regional economy. Stabilizing the last line of defense, however, the Wall Street financial tycoons who have gone completely mad, regardless of the geopolitical balance, they have successively destroyed the defensive lines of Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea. With a full load of spoils of war, extremely inflated international speculative capital with a greedy gaze, shifted focus to two larger targets the summer of 1998, the elite airdrop troops of Wall Street made a decision that could be considered crazy. They are at both ends of the Eurasian continent. Launch an epic financial duel front battle simultaneously. On one hand, George Soros, the leading figure, is brimming with confidence. With the lingering effects of the wave sweeping across Asia, the main force marched directly to Hong Kong this time. He acted completely differently from his usual self. Rarely stepping forward to the stage, even the core traders under their management, a public challenge in international financial media name, and shame Hong Kong. This is nothing but a complete disgrace to one's reputation in the martial arts world. Are you fully committed to this high-stakes gamble? On the other hand, on the other side of the earth, the Wall Street, God-level hedge fund, LTCM, long-term capital management, another wave of speculative capital leading the charge with leverage ratios tens of times higher. They aggressively suppressed the market. Like a hungry wolf, they rushed to help Russia, which was mired in economic difficulties. Quantum Fund of the Chain Rose also placed a significant bet on the Russian market. Open your mouth wide and enjoy the feast. This double line offensive spanning half the globe, actually, it originates from Western capital on the so-called data model and extreme arrogance of economic iron laws in their supposedly flawless actuarial models. These two matches are absolutely certain to be decisive victories. For Hong Kong, the period of British colonial rule, in Hong Kong the active non-intervention policy is regarded as the mainstay of the divine authority. They see it as the Achilles heel that could bring Hong Kong to its knees. This group of tycoons has accurately predicted Hong Kong's future. Never dared to break dogma and interfere with the market once the three dimensional strangulation is initiated. Hong Kong dollar panic selling forced rate, increase Hong Kong stock market and real estate sector are bound to collapse. As for Russia, the Nobel Prize winners who are stationed at the headquarters, they cling to the Western spirit of contract with unyielding determination in their logic. A sovereign state is absolutely incapable of defaulting on its obligations. They concluded that Moscow is willing to sell everything it has. Even if they force ordinary people to beg for food, we should also prioritize settling the debts owed to Wall Street first. Just apply any amount of pressure in due course, another round of Russian high-quality assets at rock. Bottom prices, let them choose. In the eyes of these Wall Street elites, the Oriental Pearl, rich and prosperous polar bear with weakened anemia. Just two ends, just a slightly fatter lamb waiting to be slaughtered. But this seemingly perfect serial crime series, just on two battlefields, they all missed the most critical variable. Those lofty and hypocritical doctrines when fundamental principles are violated and basic rights are breached, the will to survive of a nation before the official battle begins. Soros's calculations. I just didn't realize Hong Kong was no longer an isolated city. At that time, Beijing's stance was remarkably decisive. As long as Hong Kong needs it, the mainland will provide foreign exchange reserves as needed. Make sure it is absolutely safe. Nay, the People's Bank of China, a specialized team led by the deputy president, was also dispatched, secretly flying to Hong Kong to take charge. All Chinese-funded institutions have also entered a state of readiness, a state of all. Outfighting the time has come to August 1998. This global battle on two fronts, it also ushered in a breathtaking surge of activity. The 14th of August 1998, Hong Kong has broken the convention of Western economics. The decision that shocked the world, no more sitting back and doing nothing. He kicked away the shrine tablet that symbolized passive non-interference. Drawing on huge foreign exchange reserves, he personally took the role of a super buyer. The frenzied sell-off across the entire market this scene instantly ignited Western public opinion. Those neoliberal scholars are absolutely furious. Even Nobel Prize winner Friedman also issued a special statement criticizing harshly, "This is a disgrace to the free port." But ironically, did you know? While Western experts hold the moral high ground while accusing Hong Kong of breaking the rules, a loud noise from the Russian battlefield. It completely shattered the reputation of the entire Wall Street. This polar bear, they don't follow the Wall Street model at all. They don't even bother with superficial efforts. The 17th of August, 1998, facing massive short-selling pressure from foreign capital Moscow, glanced at the empty treasury, spread one's two hands in despair. He simply and decisively overturned the table. "I am sorry, everyone. The repayment of maturing foreign debts will be postponed for 90 days from today." Simultaneously, the payment of domestic bonds was completely frozen. "This means I don't have money. Not only is there no money, I won't even acknowledge the accounts first. Whoever loves to die, dies. I am not playing anymore." Russia's violent act of overturning a table make all the mathematical models vanish in an instant. Then the time comes to the 28th of August 1998. This is the settlement date for Hong Kong's August Hang Seng Index futures. It was also the final day of the Battle of Hong Kong. At 10 a.m., when the market opens, a torrential wave of selling orders, it came down like a tsunami. Per minute, hundreds of millions of Hong Kong dollars in stakes were dumped out the air in Central, seems to be frozen. But Hong Kong has not backed down. The entire line withstood all the selling pressure. Ultimately, the index stabilized firmly at 7829 points, significantly above the 6,000 point liquidation threshold. Under short selling pressure, the result of fighting on two fronts, it transformed into two bloody boomerangs. A swift and ruthless strike back at Wall Street's heart on the Asian line. The Hong Kong government's strong counterattack Soros suffered a huge loss, returning home in a state of utter defeat and humiliation. And on the Eastern Europe route, Russia is turning the tables. Let the international speculative capital in the ruble bond in seconds become waste paper, the LTCM fund. Revered as a Wall Street deity, suffered a devastating blow in an instant. In less than 4 months, this one possesses countless brilliant minds. The Wall Street monster, with a leverage ratio of 25 times the huge loss, exceeded $4.3 billion. Bankruptcy liquidation at the place of origin, that is at this very moment, the most classic double standard in the history of human finance, born just a second ago. They are still accusing the Hong Kong government of breaking the rules. President of the Federal Reserve grants been turning around. I saw a fire in my own backyard, realizing that if LTCM collapses, the entire US financial system is doomed to perish along with it. What kind of free market is this? What not to intervene in? Go on, you ghost. They can't even wait for the weekend. The state machines exit at the speed of light. They just closed the door, forcing the 14 leading banks on Wall Street. They scraped together a staggering $3.6 billion to plug the hole. The so-called sacred rules. It is like putting shackles on someone else's feet. Saving the world at any cost, it is the private backdoor reserve for your own people. This double standard from the dawn of the rescue of the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, the full guarantee for small-cap banks in previous years, they perform well. It is becoming more and more justified with each passing day. Here lies another profoundly ironic historical coincidence in those years, widely regarded as George Soros's chief prat fave in the financial world. I was personally involved in the 1992 campaign to weaken the British pound. Witnessed countless sovereign financial wars. The core trader, his name is Scott Benson. During that year's dual-line combat training session, he can be said to have fully grasped the concept. How to accurately bite a country's wealth. Hearing this name, does this sound absurd to you all? Exactly the financial tycoon who once made his fortune across the globe. As of today, 2026, sitting firmly at the center of power in Washington. His new identity was the 79th Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, as this group of people worked on establishing the rules of the game on one hand. He personally took on the role of a player himself. This game, what exactly are other countries trying to compete with? The crisis caused by arrogance and greed finally, completely. The lesson of Asian bloodshed makes all countries wake up without a solid industrial foundation as a backstop. Will blindly follow financial liberalization that would be tantamount to opening the gates wide. Opened the door to a dangerous foe, this collective awakening. It also inspired later Asian nations to look eastward. And the formation of the China and East Evil Free Trade Zone, this sets the stage for a profound development. But this catastrophe, it also left behind a sense of extreme unease and panic. Prevent Asia from being harvested again? You could say you've developed severe dollar anxiety. Everyone is going all out to develop export opportunities, accumulation of foreign exchange, and then all that hard-earned money. Casting all caution to the winds, all of it should be used to buy US Treasury bonds. As a life-saving bulletproof vest, but who could have imagined? The massive amount of money generated for self-preservation, last it ultimately triggered the 2008 US subprime mortgage bubble. The perfect fuel. This is exactly what that saying means. It will have to be paid back sooner or later. But everyone thinks America is the arrogant big brother. Will you take the blame for this? Of course, not 2005, Fei, senior member of the Federal Reserve later. Bernanke became the chairman. How dare you do this so brazenly? It caused a global shockwave. Global saving surplus theory, his divine logic is. This is all because Asians are so fond of saving money, buying American government bonds, causing hot money to flow back to the US, lowering interest rates, forcing Americans to borrow money. This is just creating bubbles, Ivrion. Listen, is this simply absurd? This is akin to a fat person who has eaten to the point of abdominal distension. Go back and blame the restaurant chef. It is all your fault for cooking such delicious food. Too much of a component, it made me eat so much. In the end, it is always others who are wrong. In fact, after the final showdown of the Asian financial crisis, later the gears of history have already started to turn again early 2000 with the bursting of the internet bubble. The Federal Reserve began slashing interest rates in a desperate bid to rescue the market. The outcome was a sharp decline in interest rates. On the other hand, all of Asia is afraid of being exploited again. The massive influx of funds seeking refuge in the United States. And that is how it is all over the American market. It was instantly submerged in the endless sea of cheap hot money. This time, the Wall Street elites have changed their minds. They found crossing the seas to target foreign currencies you might end up kicking the iron plate. Even face liquidation like LTCM since overseas targets are well prepared for defense. Why go to the trouble of seeking something far away when it is already within reach? Right in front of me, there is clearly a more succulent one. And a hunting ground with no protection at all. That is right. It is the grassroots people in the United States. The main character of this grand play has been quietly replaced by a leading Western investment bank, and those credit rating agencies that claim to be absolutely objective. This group of exceptionally intelligent elites, after all. It is in your own house. What kind of crazy game was invented? Why lower the mortgage threshold? The grassroots masses who can't even pay their debts, bearing astronomical debts, and those bad debts that are doomed to never be recovered. How is it being packaged again and again? Apply the highest security label, it has become a globally sought after financial gift box. When the mess can't be cleaned up, the US government that once vehemently condemned foreign interference in its domestic market. How can one mobilize state machinery without blushing or panting? Light speed printing, they are the ones. How to elegantly dilute the sky, high debt transfer it to the whole world. The allies across the ocean, Europe push into the abyss of European debt. Next episode. Let's uncover the hidden causes behind the 2008 global financial crisis. This ultimate strategic move has completely reshuffled the global wealth landscape. Please wait the rise and fall of hegemony. Episode 6, Faye Wall Street in trouble. Global payment. Remember to subscribe. See you next time.